What's going on, guys? Pete Nova here with Face Off Sports Network. We are back. It is Sunday morning, rise and shine, 8:30 here. And we had a lot of football go off yesterday. We had football go off on Friday. Preseason is almost done, guys. We have NFL football right around the corner for week 1. I'm joined by the FF Mediators. You can find them on Twitter at the FF Mediators. Matt, Coach, what's going on, fellas?
Nothing much, man. Happy to be here.
Yeah, Coach, man. How we doing? We feeling good? We feeling awake?
Good. Feeling good. Now Matt might be struggling. He's not on the East Coast,
It's early.
What time is it by you, Matt?
I mean, it's 7:30 now, but I woke up at 6.
Yeah,
he's locked in.
Are you? Before we get into it, are you a morning guy or no?
I am a morning person by nature. I always wake up at 6 every day, no matter what. So
okay, so then we're okay. I don't feel too bad.
We're good.
Cool. Big Draft Energy Disco, what's up, man? How you doing, brother? We got a lot to talk about today. Let's jump into the first top topic. We're going to go through game by game, just talk about some of the specific players, some of the key takeaways. And let's start off with the Detroit Lions. Isaac Tesla was pretty much the biggest standout here. He was a player that the Lions pretty much, sold 2 third-round picks in the future for to go up and get. He played 35 snaps yesterday, 19 routes run, 5 total targets, and he's really looked the part so far. Isaac Tesla grew up as a, Detroit Lions fan. I believe he grew up in that area, and so, the hometown kid is now getting a shot to make plays, and it looks like he's really making the most out of that opportunity. Right now, this is a receiver room outside of St. Brown and Jameson Williams. That's kind of thin. You have Dwayne Eskridge. I'm looking at Miami, the other team on the other side. You have Khalif Raymond, Dominic Lovett, Jackson Meeks, Tom Kennedy. Some of these guys, you don't even know who the heck they are. And so he's got a real shot, guys, to get that wide receiver 3 role. I want to pose a question to you, Matt, and I'll let you kick it off. With the ascension of Isaac Tesla so far, the first few weeks, is it crazy to say that Jameson Williams' production, who a lot of people are really banking on having, that big time breakout this year, is it safe to say that his breakout might be in jeopardy slightly with Tesla coming into town?
Absolutely, it is, in my opinion. I mean, we have to step back and look at the transactions the team made. They traded 3 third-round picks to go and get Isaac Tesla back in the draft in May. Tesla is a guy that kind of came onto the scene late. Coach and we started to talk about him probably a week or two before the Senior Bowl back in February. We watched the tape from him at Arkansas. We thought, man, this guy's kind of interesting. He's big. He's quick. He's got great, solid hands. Then he shows up at the Senior Bowl and he balled out, man. He played really, really well against some good competition. Goes into the game, gets a couple 2-point conversions. He might have scored, I can't remember. But he looked well. And then, of course, we fast forward into the draft season. We get to the combine. He had one of the highest athleticism scores out of any wide receiver in the entire draft. So it's not surprising to kind of see that show up on the field now. Jameson Williams is a guy, he's a burner. He can absolutely do that. He'll be the one that will score 25 to 30 points probably once or twice this year. Will Tesla do that? No, but I do think Tesla can be a more consistent player, and I do think that will eat into the, quote, breakout for Jameson Williams.
Coach, what are your thoughts?
They gave up a lot to go get Tesla. That says a lot about what they thought about him. His athletic measurables are off the charts. I thought when I first turned on his tape back in April, I was like, man, this kind of reminds me a little bit of Puka. There's a little bit of that in there, and that combined with the fact that nobody really knew about him coming out of college, and his playing style is similar, big, strong, physical, not afraid of contact. There's just a lot to like with Tesla. And I think without a doubt, it's concerning for JMO believers at minimum, right? Like there's an opportunity that Tesla's going to steal a little bit of that target share. And at minimum, he's going to play and he's going to get some opportunities. They've invested a lot in him. Like I really like Tesla. Like we were stashing him like crazy early on.
I mean, he's 6'4", 214, man, and he uses that frame every bit of it.
Yeah, he had a nice touchdown yesterday. Let's talk about Williams a little bit here because that's the guy that's likely going to have the biggest impact, I would say, this year. Tesla, I think, is a player that, as a rookie could, have his moments and play really well, and he's somebody for dynasty purposes. But when we talk about Jamison Williams right now, wide receiver 27, he's going off the board at pick 59 in PPR scoring. You're talking about a player that's right behind Zay Flowers, right ahead of Tet McMillan, and you're looking at drafting Jamison Williams somewhere in the 5th round, maybe early 4th for Jamison Williams. And when we talk about JMO, look, a slow start due to the injury and suspension. He kind of had a breakout last year, ending with 1,000 yards. He had 7 total touchdowns, and he's a big play player, kind of waiting to happen. He had a couple touchdowns of 50 plus yards. He averaged 17.3 yards per catch. And he finished as the top 12 fantasy wide receiver down the stretch. And really the biggest thing that was saving him is those big plays that he has had, but he's never been a huge volume guy. So maybe, I think the volume is not so important for JMO. He can be a guy that can salvage a week on just one play alone, right? We saw it plenty of times last year, but I think the draw towards JMO this year was we're expecting him to get a higher target share, more target volume, and I don't know if I don't want to sit here and overreact, so to speak, but it seems like this team really, really likes Isaac Tesla. And I think that there is a world where you have Sam Laporta, you have Jahmyr Gibbs, you now add Tesla. David Montgomery can still catch out of the backfield. He still has a solid floor for receptions. You have Amon-Ra St. Brown, right? And I think we were also banking on, Ben Johnson leaving. Maybe there was a little bit of a different flavor for the new offensive coordinator. Jameson Williams, 91 targets last year, just 58 receptions. He's 17.3 yards per reception is hard to replicate. And if he can't bump up that volume on 58 receptions, he also had 7 touchdowns. So is there a possibility he repeats 7, or is there slight regression there too? So I think these are all important questions to raise about Jameson Williams. Before we jump over to the next player or just the next topic, I do want to ask you guys a question. And Coach, I'll start with you first since we started with Matt before. Jameson Williams or Tetterella McMillan, who would you prefer this year if you are drafting? It's Tet's one player behind JMO. Tet's the wide receiver 29. Jameson Williams is wide receiver 28.
Yeah, I think I'm going to lean towards Tet a little bit here. I mean, I think he's a safer play. I can't believe I'm saying that about a rookie, right? But I feel like they have no choice but to throw him the football. Now, JMO's usage has gone up, from year 1 to 2, and there is that working in his favor. But you're right about Ben Johnson being out of town, and the Panthers invested so much in Tet that I just think they're going to target him like crazy because they don't have anybody else. So I've came around on Tet a little bit, believe it or not, there, Pete.
Yeah, I feel the same. Matt, I'm going to ask you the next one here because I already know Coach's answer. Would you rather Calvin Ridley or Jameson Williams? Because Calvin Ridley is currently wide receiver 34 on Sleeper. Jameson Williams, wide receiver 28. You're getting Calvin Ridley about almost 10 spots behind, eight spots, we'll say, behind Jameson Williams right now in ADP. Would you prefer to go Calvin Ridley over Jameson Williams?
It's Ridley easily for me. And for what it's worth, it would have been McMillan too. I think what Jameson Williams did last year is probably what we would see this year as well. There is some concern of Ben Johnson's being out of town. Does that kind of impact him? Does Jared Goff have some slight regression? Maybe they lean on the run game a little bit more. It's all possible, but I do think that Jameson Williams just kind of is what he is. If you go back and look at the box score, a lot of these games that he was fantasy relevant or produced for you, it's the games he scored a touchdown. If he didn't score, he was just kind of ho-hum. And that's kind of the story of Jameson Williams. He's a burner. It is what he is. It takes one play for him. So, those games where he scores 20-something points. The games where he doesn't, he's floating around 8 to 10. I think that Tesla can eat into that opportunity. When we flip over and we look at Calvin Ridley did almost the exact same thing. He just had 3 less touchdowns. That's all that the difference is. Their stats are almost identical. 1,017 yards as opposed to 1,001 for Jameson Williams. And what I know about the Titans is the quarterback room is vastly better. I can't say enough about Cam Ward. I know coaches said it for months. I'm all into. In my opinion, I'd rather have Calvin Ridley. He's cheaper, and I think there's a higher upside for Ridley. Plus, we've seen him do it. I mean, yes, I understand it was 5 years ago, but he was wide receiver 5. He's absolutely produced for fantasy. And I think him being the guy with Cam Ward is much better than Jameson Williams being the burner, possibly wide receiver 2, possibly wide receiver 3 in the Detroit offense.
Yeah, the last thing I would say here, and then we can move on, is with Ridley, too, you're getting more volume. He's a player that has commanded more volume his entire career. We just haven't seen that with Jameson Williams. Ridley had 120 targets last year, 136 the year before. And I mean, this right now, if you're not the number one on your team, right, and there's a lot of playmakers around you, big playability is likely how you're going to make hay, which is what Jameson Williams has done. But volume is key in fantasy football, right? We know this, and especially if you want a safer floor. Otherwise, you're going to be left with a couple of weeks where you're kind of frustrated with the production. And Jameson Williams definitely has that, and Calvin Ridley is also in a room that, look, I like Tyler Lockett, but Tyler Lockett is not the same guy that he was a few years ago. You have Van Jefferson there. Now, Alec Manor has looked really, really good so far in training camp and had a nice showing the other day. But overall, I mean, you're not at a spot with these wide receivers where you could trust anyone outside of Ridley, where Jameson Williams has a ton of competition around him. The one thing I'll say about JMO is in a couple weeks last year, week 3, he had 1.2 points. Week 7, he had 0.6 points, 9.6 points in week 13, 11.8 in week 12, 9.4. That was in the championship. But it's just, there's some inconsistencies there. And when I'm looking at his receptions last year, he only had one game over 6 catches, over 5 catches, and it was in week 18 when it didn't even matter for you. So I feel like that's super important to note. But let's move on to the next topic here, guys. A lot of stuff that we saw in preseason yesterday. I will stop over here with the Broncos. We're not going to spend too much time on them, but Troy Franklin and Pat Bryant looked really, really good yesterday. I know, all jokes aside, I've kind of poked around Franklin and thrown him out there to you guys saying, the breakout is coming. And while I don't necessarily think that Troy Franklin is going to, be this player that you're going to start this season, because Sean Payton really just rotates his personnel a ton. And there's a lot of depth in that wide receiver room. Franklin looked really good. He had probably his best showing as a Bronco yesterday with 2 total touchdowns. You had Pat Bryant going for over 70 yards. I think my thoughts on this room is it's still Sutton and it's still Ingram as the pass catchers that you want in redraft this year. I'm not going to feel super confident starting anybody else unless there's injuries. But overall, a really, really nice look for that room. And I mean, if you can stash one of those guys, I mean, I know we almost made a deal last night in our league where you guys almost traded me Troy Franklin right before he scored the second touchdown. I kept it. I did decline because it was really swapping Franklin for Monungai, and I think I truly think Monungai has a good chance, and we've talked about that, coach. I think he has a chance to be that running back too. But tell me what your thoughts, and I'll start with you first. I mean, did you watch the game last night with Troy Franklin at all and Pat Bryant? And do any of these guys look like players you'd be targeting in Dynasty, or are they just nice pieces to have in an offense that probably won't be consistent ever for you, in your opinion?
Well, Franklin was a guy we were stashing last year. I don't know how consistent he will ever be. But Pat Bryant's the same way. Like, we're stashing him, sticking him on taxis everywhere. The thing about Denver, and I'm not a Denver fan by any means, but I am a Sean Payton fan. Like, I like the things he does offensively. And I think he went out of his way to get Pat Bryant. Like, he really liked Pat Bryant as someone he targeted, not someone that necessarily fell in his lap. And I think anytime Sean Payton does that, those dudes tend to find their way on the field eventually and help the team. So I do think there's that. And I think he can really, those are just two guys you can sit there in your taxi and one day you might use them. Troy Franklin looks a lot better than he did this time last year. So there is the opportunity, should there be an injury, where Troy Franklin could come in and play a significant role. I mean, those are the things you're looking for in Dynasty with those guys you're stashing and taxiing.
Sure. Matt, what are your thoughts, man?
Yeah, I think it's refreshing to see. I mean, personally, I like to see it from Pat Bryant more than Franklin. I'm not necessarily the biggest Franklin believer, but I do like the opportunity. And the most important thing for me is when we step back and look at this Broncos wide receiver room, like you said, it's Cortland Sutton, and then we're jumping to the tight end and Evan Ingram. So there is opportunity to be had here. Bo Nix is a rising star. How high can he go? We'll have to see. But someone's going to have to catch the ball. And I think that Pat Bryant, having that game that he had, what do you have? 9 routes, 4 targets, 70 yards, something like that.
With the starters, I was with
Mm-hmm.
Stidham, and then he stayed in a little bit, and so did Franklin with Sam Ellinger after.
Yeah, and that's refreshing to see because, like Coach said, that's someone that Peyton was targeting. I mean, they drafted him, second round, right?
Yeah.
So it's someone they wanted.
Third round.
Okay. So either way, it was a day 2 pick, and that's some significant capital for a wide receiver room that needed help. So I'm really interested. I'd be totally in on stashing Bryant and go out and check in with the owner, see what you could get him for, because a lot of times he went undrafted. I got him off waivers in several leagues. He went in the 3rd round if he was drafted, sometimes the 4th if your league has that. Franklin's another guy I kind of forgot about. It's going to be tough because he had the 2 touchdowns last night. I'm sure if Pete comes asking, we'll ask for a first just to mess with him. But, at the same time, there's opportunity here. So I think stashing any one of these guys, whoever you have conviction on, that's the one I'd go with.
Yeah. Franklin obviously comes in and he is, hold on. Cali Trader, we're over here on YouTube. If you find us, if you type in the or the Fantasy Face Off Sports Network, you'll find us over there on YouTube.
Come on over.
Check us out over there. But yeah, man, I think Troy Franklin, he obviously has that relationship with Bo Nix, and I think that's something. We talked about it with T-Law yesterday, and I don't want to go off track, but there is something to be said a little bit about guys, especially the starting quarterback, having some sort of relation with a skill player, and that being a comfortability thing. Troy Franklin has looked phenomenal. He looks like he put on a little bit of weight. He looked really, really raw last year. And not to mention Franklin slipped in the draft, but a lot of people coming into this, really, really felt that Franklin was going to be up maybe a day 2 pick, right, last year. And then he slips and falls and Peyton takes a chance on him, right? I don't think Franklin's going to be a guy that you're consistently going to ever start this year unless there's an injury. One thing I do want to note, Devon Vele, who looked really good last year, I think there's a real world that his roster spot's in jeopardy right now. It's, if you are holding Vele, I have him in a couple spots. I think there's a possibility they may trade him. It's just possibly not enough room on this roster right now. You have Sutton, you have Mims, you have Trent Sherfield, who is a special teams guy who also has shown that he can make some plays on offense if needed. You have Troy Franklin, you have Pat Bryant.
A.T. Perry.
What do you say?
A.T. Perry.
A.T. Perry, he'll be a P squad guy. But there is real conversations that he doesn't make the team. I said it a couple weeks ago. I still stand by this. Switching to the running backs, at least, I don't think Audric Estime makes this team. I think he's unfortunately going to be cut or traded. If anybody would give anything up for him at this point. But if you are holding Estime, keep that in mind. It's probably for the better if you're holding Estime. If he can go to another team, maybe like the Texans, who have a little bit more, I don't even know if you'd say it's more open. We'll get to the Texans shortly, but yeah. But either way, if you're holding Estime, I don't think you want him here in Denver anymore. It's just a really crowded backfield. So let's move off of the Broncos. I want to talk about the Giants game, right? And we saw Jackson Dart look really, really good yesterday, guys. I know, Coach, you talked about it a little bit prior. We chopped it up a little bit. I'm going to go over Jackson Dart's stat line here, guys. But overall, Russell Wilson came out first, and he threw that big pass, and everybody kind of was in awe of it. And we've talked about it. Look, at the end of the day, this is what Russ does do well. He does throw a deep ball very, very well, but it's everything else in between. He takes a lot of sacks. He doesn't really throw the short and intermediate stuff very well. And so for Russ, it could be maddening a little bit. If for Neighbors, I think it's going to be a lot of big plays, a lot of downfield work. So that's going to be exciting. But it's everything in between, the short and intermediate stuff I do worry about with Neighbors a little bit if Russ is the starter there. But I do think we're going to get a lot of big plays. Russ 4 for 7, 108 yards, 1 interception. Jackson Dart, 14 for 16, 137 and a touchdown, only took 1 sack, and has looked really good back-to-back weeks, stacking back-to-back really good performances. We've talked about it with rookie quarterbacks. We're not really looking at the stat line too much. It's really just about comfortability and looking like you belong, right? That's like the biggest thing. Like does Jackson Dart look like he can be an NFL quarterback? Does he look like the talent that he's playing against is, that he's one of the best guys, if not the best guy out there? And I think Jackson Dart definitely showed that, which is encouraging. That doesn't mean it's going to translate to him being a good NFL quarterback when the competition gets better, but it is encouraging for Giants fans. And I think we could see Dart sooner rather than later. Coach, I'll kick it over to you. Looking at this Giants team, I'm going to read off the schedule to you. We all know it's a pretty tough schedule, and I want you to tell me when you think Jackson Dart would get a shot. So they start at Washington. They start with Washington.
Loss.
They go to Dallas. They go to Kansas City in week 3. They play the Chargers week 4. They could very, very much be 1-3 here. Maybe they steal a win from Dallas in week 2. 1-3. They play the Saints in week 5. Maybe they can squeak a win there.
When they go 1-3, it's Jackson Dart City. I mean, it is like there's no avoiding it. Like Brian Daboll's already answering questions. Like he was bombarded yesterday after the game about Jackson Dart already. I think there's real question in New York whether there are 2 quarterbacks behind Russell Wilson better than him. Because Jameis also played pretty good yesterday in the time that he had. Can Russell Wilson win some ball games? Sure, against a decent schedule, but their offensive line is not very good. I think there will come a point where they want to put Jackson Dart out there, and how soon they want to do it, and I'm sure they have a plan there. But at the same time, that New York media and the fans, like they're going to be clamoring for Jackson Dart, and there's going to be just no avoiding him eventually.
Yeah, I think week 5, and I'll kick it to you, Matt. Week 5 opens up probably the best week for him to start because it becomes a really brutal stretch, right? I mean, they play the Chargers week 4, right? Maybe they're 1-3, 0-4 at that point. Then they get the Saints week 5. If they don't start him week 5, you're probably looking at the best time to put him back out there is after the bye week, because then they go against the Eagles, they play the Broncos, they go Eagles again, San Francisco, and then Chicago week 10. Maybe that Chicago game is the next closest game that you could see them sticking him in there before the bye week. But if Russ looks bad and they start off slow, I think Daboll is going to have a quick leash here. But Matt, what are your thoughts here? Are you in agreement? And what were your thoughts overall on Dart and what you saw yesterday?
I'll start with Dart. Really positive. You love to see that. I mean, this preseason he's played well. You mentioned it. He's not stacking just one game. Week 1 of preseason he played well then as well. I mean, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, completing 75% of passes. The comment in here is we don't want to look too much into the box scores of preseason. Totally get it. But we also want to look at what they did. How did they play? Did it look like they knew what they were doing? And he has looked great so far. I do think that the leash in New York, it might be short with the media, but I think Daboll's not going to put Jackson Dart out there. I don't think he's going to set him up for failure. I think the true game plan, if they know they're out of the running for the playoffs, which I think we all assume they will be, I think it would probably be week 15 against Washington at home, coming off the bye. You kind of get him worked into the system, continue to develop as we move forward. That's the most likely scenario to me. I don't think they want to play Jackson Dart in week 4 or week 5. Does it happen? Sure, it could. I mean, we see it every year. One of these guys gets thrust into the situation. Drake May was week 3 last year. So I think that that it could happen. I don't think it's the best thing for him. I think the longer he can sit, the better. But it is really reassuring to see that he's played well so far. I mean, if you're a dynasty manager, you got to be giddy. Like, you got to love it, because the idea of having the New York quarterback paired with Malik Neighbors is fantastic. And, this team has developed great on the other side of the ball. I mean, that defensive line is insane. So what we can assume is going forward, they're going to continue to invest pieces on this offense, probably the offensive line, probably another skill position player. So there's better days ahead, as much as I hate it for the New York Giants. But Jackson Dart kind of looks like he's going to be the biggest benefactor of it all.
He's played really well. Like, Jackson Dart he's seen rolling coverages. He's seen a lot of a little more complicated things than some of the other guys that are rookies have seen throughout the preseason, and he's handled it really well. The other thing to remember about Jackson Dart is he's actually a really good athlete. So he's capable of helping you with his feet as well. So there is that also.
Yeah, added a touchdown on the ground. I know it's a sneak, but still, I mean, it's something he has. And Coach, you talked about that a lot. I forget who we were comparing him to pre-draft, but he's more athletic than them. Gosh, who was it? Shador, thank you.
Oh, I thought you were gonna keep going. Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I think it's tough with Dayball. Here's the thing. Last year, it was very possible that this coaching staff and Schoen could get canned. I think they showed faith that they were willing to run it back, but they want to be competitive. Like, that was pretty much what we heard this offseason. Ownership said to them, hey, we want to compete. Like, we're not looking at this as like a rebuild year. And so I guess I have concerns in terms of, like, for Russ, like, how quick that leash looks, because to be completely honest with you, the O-line is pretty tough. It's not great there. And while you don't want to throw Jackson Dart back there and have him, get punch drunk, I would also say that, look, maybe it's a hater in me for Russ, but like, I've seen Russ take some bad sacks last year. So I'm taking some bad sacks in Denver. So I'm taking some bad sacks in Seattle. The difference was when he was younger, he could make up for those bad sacks by making big plays. And he was better out of structure than he is now. And with Dayball, look, if they start off slow, we know the schedule is really, really bad. Like, this fan base loves what they saw from Jackson Dart. We saw Mara sit there and tell us that he wanted them to keep Barkley because it was their highest selling jersey, like, at one point. Like, so we know Mara cares about what the fans think and sales and all that. And I'll tell you, if this team looks really, really bad the first 4 to 5 weeks, I know Mara is going to be in their ear to say, get Jackson Dart in there, because that's what the fans are going to be clamoring for. And it's hard when you look at the Giants. They've had really bad quarterback play for years, and those fans see a glimpse of hope. They spent a first-round draft pick on a quarterback. He's looked really, really solid the first 2 weeks. Again, I'm not saying it's going to translate to NFL success for him, but what I would say is, the noise will get loud, and New York media is pretty dang brutal. And we know the Maras like to meddle when it comes to the decisions that are made by the coaching staff and with the roster. And so I do think that's all something to factor in. Before we move on, we're talking Jackson Dart. Let's talk about his dynasty value here. He's a guy that consistently went somewhere on the 1-2 turn in dynasty drafts for rookie drafts this year. There's just some recent trades that have happened today and, the last 24 hours. You see Jackson Dart go off for 2 seconds next year. I don't know if that's something I would feel great about. Him go for Jaden Reed, I think that's selling him pretty low too there, to be completely honest with you.
How do we get in these leagues?
Yeah. I think this one is maybe the best looking one because all these are giant packages. But Jackson Dart for DJ Moore is maybe a little bit better if the DJ Moore team is a contender.
Yeah, I mean, if that's your QB3, maybe your QB4, if you just took the shot, I'm okay with it. But
yeah,
for the most part, give me Dart. Yeah, give me Dart.
No, it's fair. I mean,
I'm sitting here sending these offers right now. I'm sending Jaden Reed for Jackson Dart right now.
Well, this says Jackson Dart for Troy Franklin. That's a 1 quarterback league. quarterbacks are so hard to move in one quarterbacks. I'm not saying that's a great trade either. It's a 12-man, but I think overall, some of these packages are interesting. Jackson Dart and Mahomes for Luther, Caleb, and a second. I still think I would take the Dart and Mahomes side there. Some pretty awful looking trades, to be honest, that have been made the last 24 hours involving Jackson Dart. I would have thought teams would have maybe gotten more than this. It seems like teams are getting less than I would have expected, to be
Go
honest.
buy Dart.
Yeah, maybe that's a sign to go buy him, because maybe the market's not nearly as high on him just yet. But let's move on, guys. Again, a lot of stuff we saw yesterday. I did want to talk about the Cowboys here, and this running back situation is really brutal, right? I mean, you have Javonte Williams, you have Miles Sanders, you have Jaden Blue, who just got drafted there. It's just, I think the sentiment from a lot of people this offseason with this offense with the running backs is just don't want to draft any of them, right? Like I feel like that's been a lot of what many have said, including myself, right? Like I just don't know how much value any of them are going to hold. Maybe the receiving back in this room, because I expect them to throw the football a lot. I don't think that defense is going to be that good, and so maybe whoever ends up being the receiving back. But Phil Maffa, got a little bit of an opportunity, yesterday, and I thought he looked pretty good in the limited work that he had. Overall, I guess let me kick it over to you, Matt. I mean, is Phil Maffa? Who do you? Let's just start like this. Who do you expect to come out of this room as the starter?
Yeah, I think that the biggest winner has to be Javonte, right? I mean, he's gotten the most snaps with the ones. Correct me if I'm wrong. He didn't play in the game.
No.
I don't think he played. Okay, that's what I thought. I think he's the biggest winner. I mean, the reports out of campus, he looks good. He's healthy. This offensive line in Dallas, can it hold up? That's an even bigger question that we could dive into. Phil Maffa, you mentioned his name. It's nice to see him step in and, get some good reps, get some good opportunities. Because, I mean, this room is not that good. I mean, we're talking about Miles Sanders. We've seen that show. I don't know if you guys watched him yesterday. There's plenty of times where he lost like 5 yards on a carry. Deuce Vaughn, great story. NFL running back? No. Jaden Blue is great out of the backfield, but I think he's kind of limited to that third down role. He reminds me a lot of James White. I feel like he can really step in and catch the ball out of the backfield, 2-minute drill, things like that. I don't think he's going to carry a workload. He's not that guy. He's never been that guy. So Phil Maffa, with the opportunity he's been given, has looked well. He's healthy. It's a murky backfield, so there's opportunity. But I think Javonte Williams is going to be the guy that leads this backfield. Probably going to be the one that's the most fantasy relevant. How relevant is that? Probably a late RB2, RB3.
Yeah, Javonte seems to be the guy to me, right? Like he was clearly resting with Pickens and Lamb and Ferguson.
Miles Sanders did play yesterday too, by the way. So
yeah,
Javonte Rex, Sanders plays.
Yeah, that says a lot to me. Jaden Blue's hurt. He didn't play, but he's injured, I believe. So he'll be back. I still think he's probably ahead of Phil Maffa. I like Phil Maffa as a big bruiser. Blue is just completely different. So there is that. But I think Javonte is the guy. Like, if you're going to roster anybody, he's the guy you would want to roster and not feel great about it.
Yeah. And I don't want to spend too much time on this room, but I think Maffa, the one thing I would say is Blue and Maffa look like guys that provide upside in the room, to be honest, right? I mean, Blue kind of looks like he can be that like receiving back out of the backfield. He had good hands in Texas. A little bit of a smaller guy, but really fast. And Maffa looks like he's a bruiser, right? He could be a guy that's going to get the tough yards. He's what you wanted Javonte to be before the injury, right? So we'll see how Javonte bounces back. But I would say Maffa had one solid run yesterday. He didn't get a ton of burn, but overall he's looked good in pass pro. He's looked good in the opportunities he's been given. And I don't think Miles Sanders is long for this roster if Jaden Blue and Maffa can play better, right? And Jaden Blue's got to get healthy first. He's got like a bone bruise on the bottom of his foot or something like that. But overall, we'll see. I think the running back group is pretty gross here either way. So I don't want to spend too much time on them. But let's shift over to some other, I guess, news and notes from yesterday's game. I did want to talk about Ricky Pearsall, who I thought looked phenomenal yesterday. Matt, Ricky Pearsall is pretty much the one-man band in that wide receiver room right now. He stepped up amid injuries. He's going to have the full-time role this year, and I think for the foreseeable future, right? You talk about Juwan Jennings, who is now out due to an injury and looking for a new contract, right? I don't think they're very close on a contract based on reports that we've seen. Brandon Ayuk has that injury with the ACL, MCL, and it seems like they're really, really, pushing for week 6 to return. And even if he returns week 6, how ready is he going to be when he gets back? That'd be 11 months post-surgery. You have Jordan Watkins, you have Jacob Cowing. Jordan Watkins suffered a high ankle sprain. Jacob Cowing missed the first week of the preseason, but just recently returned to practice. So I don't know. Pearsall looked really good on the first drive of this game. He pretty much played an every down role. He's expected to be that slot receiver in the 3 receiver sets, which is something that we would like to see. And honestly, I don't know what's stopping Pearsall from not even being out there in 2 wide receiver sets. I get they gave Ayuk the contract, but you can also sit here and say they paid the draft capital for Ricky Pearsall. And
last night he did, though, right?
What'd you say?
I mean, he played on the outside last night the whole time.
He did.
He didn't go in the slot once.
No, well, that's what I'm saying. He's expected to be in the slot a decent amount, but he did play a lot on the outside, and he looked really good yesterday. There was some him and I want to get to his fantasy value, but I want to talk and see what your guys' thoughts are, how this wide receiver room shakes out, because I know not a lot of people have Ricky Pearsall. A lot of people prefer Juwan Jennings. What I would say is they looked like they were in rhythm, him and Purdy, and they looked really, really comfortable together, which was really encouraging for me. Matt, I'll go to you first. Juwan Jennings, Ricky Pearsall. I mean, do you want to own any of the wide receivers in this room? Is it just strictly George Kittle and CMC for you?
I would own Pearsall. Personally, I think that's the one wide receiver I would have an interest in getting a share. I was going to say before you kicked it to me, all this lines up to me in my mind is 2 tight end sets, 3 yards in a cloud of dust, boys. Christian McCaffrey, let's buckle up and let's hope he can be healthy, because the wide receiver room is kind of in shambles. I mean, it's a little bit of a disaster right now. They want Juwan Jennings out there. He can block. You got the contract stuff. Ayuk's hurt. So there's just so many question marks. I think they're going to have to lean on Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle to really shoulder this team and move them forward. And I think Pearsall's going to have to be the guy to step up and do it. You mentioned, Coach, he didn't play in the slot. He played all outside. That's great to see. Pete, you posed a question. What's stopping him from being the guy that shows up in these 2 wide receiver sets? I'm not sure there's anything, to be honest. I think he should be out there, and I think he will be. I mean, he poses probably the best offensive production that they can get. I mean, he's athletic. He's got great hands. He can make acrobatic catches. And we know that, this offense has got a great leader in Purdy. And then on top of that, I think that we can trust the Shanahan system to kind of produce and move the ball going forward. So I think it's wheels up for Pearsall for me. I'm not really interested in owning any other 49ers wide receiver, just given the other situations that are out there. But I still think that, Shanahan's going to find a way to produce. I don't know how competitive the team will be, but I'm at least interested.
I think the narrative has changed for me a little bit. Like, it was at one point, it was Ricky Pearsall was getting a lot of opportunity, right? He has his chance. Let's see if he can capitalize. Now, I just think he's good. Like, Ricky Pearsall is the best wide receiver that they have. I know that there might be some 49er fans that might disagree with that, but they've got first round capital tied up in Pearsall. Pearsall's really, really, really dang good. He was injured, missed the first half of last year. You saw what he could do down the stretch to finish the season last year. Now he's ready to roll. Everything's going good, and I just think he's getting ready to be the primary guy in San Fran.
Yeah, and I think this is it. This situation it's really set up for him to succeed. Overall, I was trying to get you off the big screen there. Overall, I like Ricky Pearsall. I have him as my wide receiver 28. He's going off the board as wide receiver 45 right now on Sleeper. He actually goes behind Juwan Jennings, who's wide receiver 44. Pick 94 for Jennings, pick 96 for Pearsall. Egbuka is the next wide receiver behind them. Then you have Jaden Reed, Josh Downs, Michael Pittman, Keon Coleman, Brandon Ayuk, Darnell Mooney, Rashid Shaheed. I mean, I personally, guys, I would take Ricky Pearsall over, Khalil Shakir, who goes ahead of him. I would take Ricky Pearsall over Matthew Golden, who I have bumped up in my rankings. I would take him over Chris Godwin very, very comfortably. Cooper Kupp, Jacoby Myers, Jordan Addison, Stephon Diggs, Debo Samuel, Roma Dunze, and Chris Olave are just behind him for me. I take him over Jerry Jeudy. I take him over Waddle. I take him over Travis Hunter. I take him over George Pickens. That's how high I am on Ricky Pearsall. And I totally understand that I might be higher than a lot of other people are, but I think the cost and for this room, like Kyle Shanahan typically has a 1,000 yard wide receiver in his room every single year. I think last year might have been the 1 year he didn't over the last couple of years, but traditionally, they have one guy there at the wide receiver position that has produced pretty strongly. I think Pearsall is going to be that guy. Brandon Ayuk has had the issues in the doghouse, with Kyle Shanahan. So I think that's something to note too, right? He's going to start off slow, and we've seen the issues with Ayuk, and we've seen teams be okay with bad contracts, right? Cutting bait. I'm not saying they're going to cut Ayuk this year, but with Juwan Jennings asking for a contract, I like Juwan Jennings. I think he's a good player, but I think he topped out a little bit last year, and I think he made the most out of his opportunities. But Ricky Pearsall is the best player in this room by far, and it's a great offense. I mean, you have Kittle, you have CMC, and I don't know. I'm just super, super high on Pearsall. He was a first round pick for me. He steps into an awesome situation. Could he be, third fiddle in terms of target share behind CMC and Kittle? It's very possible, but he should probably, if he's the number one target, there's a very strong possibility he's at least top two in targets in this offense behind Kittle, who I think might have the most, to be completely honest with you. But I love Ricky Pearsall. Is there anything specific else that you guys want to add to Ricky Pearsall or just his 49ers room, or are we ready to move on?
Yeah, just real quick. I think it's worth noting, too, that Pearsall, his best two games were week 17 and 18 last year. He was healthy. He had a majority of the snap share, 92%, 70%. In those 2 weeks, he had 18 targets with, I think, 14 catches for almost 200 yards and 2 touchdowns. So he performed. So I think he can do it going forward.
Yeah, I noted it.
The point we're trying to really make is that there's so much value with Ricky Pearsall. Whether it's redraft, dynasty, whatever, there's a lot of value there, especially where he's going in drafts.
Tons of upside.
Tons of upside. I would say when he got the opportunity, and Matt, you highlighted it, I don't have the stats in front of me, but I ran them about a month ago on Pearsall. But it was true. When Pearsall was finally given the opportunity to run more than 20 routes, which he was at the end of the season there, like, he shined. He looked phenomenal. And so you also got to keep in mind, there's a guy that had the gunshot wound, right? He had the hamstring injury. Like, those things slowed him down, right? And so those are all things to keep in mind. I do want to check out the chat here really quick and see what we have going on. Joe Carlton said the only concern with Pearsall is him being able to stay on the field. I agree. I think, the little bit of a hamstring injury popped up in the offseason, but I think they kept him out of training camp just because they wanted to get him up to speed. And honestly, the 49ers and their health guys, I mean, it's such a weird – I don't even understand what the heck's going on there. And then there was a question by CTH – I'm not going to try to pronounce that whole name there. He said, isn't Pearsall wide receiver 3? He said, what's your guys' thoughts on T-Mac in Carolina? He looked stellar with Bryce Young in the preseason. We actually just dropped a video. If you want to go to the archives and you have anything specific about the players we're talking about today, but we also do have, we did just drop a video about a 17-minute breakdown of the entire Carolina Panthers offense. You can go check that out in the archives there, CT. I'll drop it in the comments below. But I think to short and sweet, I know I'm probably the highest here on T-Mac. I'll tell you that I have him at wide receiver 17 this year. I know that's really, really bullish. I know Matt and Coach like T-Mac. I don't know if they're that high on him. I know I'm probably the outlier here on the show, but I'm very excited for T-Mac in Carolina this year.
Yeah, I'll be quick, Coach. I'll let you go next. I would say I'm the lowest on McMillan. But I do like the positive signs we're seeing from camp. And I've been pretty critical of Ted McMillan. But go ahead, Coach.
Yeah, I just think there's a lot of well, the room is just bad, right? The wide
Mhm.
receiver room is just not good in Carolina, and ultimately he's far and away the best player in that room. So, he's going to have to get the ball, and it is what it is. And Pete was screaming that like a month ago, and I think it actually turns out to be accurate. Whether McMillan is ever the guy we all hoped he would be, I don't know. We'll see, but he definitely has tons of potential.
Yeah, I would agree.
Pop
We're
is
gonna,
not wrong.
yeah, we're gonna shift over here to the Philadelphia Eagles because I actually think this is something that's flown under the radar a little bit, guys. We're gonna talk about Will Shipley here, guys. Will Shipley looks like he is clearly ahead for the running back 2 in this room right now. He's been ahead of A.J. Dillon for the second straight week. His preseason usage has also been more promising than Dillon's, I would say. During the first week, Shipley played in both the first quarter and the first play of the second quarter. Dillon took pretty much the entire second quarter after that. Shipley this week had the day off. Shipley didn't even play today. And Dillon played on the first drive. I think Saquon Barkley, look, I don't expect the touches to be where it was, last season for Barkley. I'm not expecting a giant fall off from him either. But I do think that they're going to try to keep him sharp and keep him rested, and they don't want him touching the ball 400 plus times again like that. And I think Will Shipley could be a guy that's, I mean, it all depends on how much you think they're going to throw the ball to the running back. But I think Will Shipley fits into that Kenny Gainwell role pretty well, comfortably. It's just a matter of I don't think they're standalone value, but if Saquon Barkley goes down, who do you think is going to be the guy that is going to be fantasy relevant? Is it A.J. Dillon? Is it Will Shipley? I'm going to take Shipley because I think they're going to have to pass the ball more. But what are your thoughts, Coach? I'll go to you first. Will Shipley, A.J. Dillon, do you have a lean on which guy you think would be more fantasy relevant, in this backfield if Saquon Barkley was to go down?
Well, I think Shipley's going to be more relevant. Shipley was a stud at Clemson. Shipley was the top running back in the country coming out of Weddington High School here in North Carolina. Like, there was a lot of buzz around Will Shipley and being a stud, and he's kind of lived up to that. He had some down times there at Clemson where he didn't quite live up to the hype that he came into Clemson with. But then he moves on to the Eagles. He's kind of found his footing, and I just think he's probably going to be the RB2. Like, he's definitely a handcuff worth having on your team, no doubt.
Matt, what are your thoughts, man?
Yeah, I'm going to echo that. I mean, we've seen the A.J. Dillon story several times, and it's really not amounted to anything. Even in Green Bay, when he kind of had the opportunity to step in and fill in for Aaron Jones when he's missed time, it was just kind of what it was. And he's a good pro. He's not great. He's not going to be anything spectacular. When we're talking about Will Shipley, what I have noticed is the electric plays. I mean, he's made several of those, not just in this preseason. He had a few last year. Not that it really mattered, but I think it's something that, like you mentioned, Pete, this team cannot just rely on Barkley to get 2,000 yards and just run all over the dang place and get 400 opportunities. They need to spell him, especially if they're looking at not just a run this year, but a run next year too. And I think that's well within their plans. And Shipley is a guy who has shown it. Like Coach said, he's got the pedigree. He played well at Clemson. This offensive line is really, really good. We'll see what happens with Landon Dickerson going down. But I don't think that A.J. Dillon is anything that should scare you off. Like Coach mentioned, Will Shipley's going to be a great handcuff that you'll want. If you're in a deeper redraft league, yeah, you can have him on your roster. If you're a little bit scared of that, dynasty leagues, it's definitely someone you want to go get on your taxi, see if you can buy him now, maybe get him a little cheaper, because if he gets the opportunity, he'd be a really interesting start.
Yeah, I do want to note, I talked a little bit about the receiving work as being a possible, a possible way to make hay for him. It's notable, Kenny Gainwell, 22 targets last year. Right now you're on screen, you're seeing Saquon Barkley, but I have Gainwell on another screen. Gainwell had 16 receptions, 116 yards last year. Jalen, while he's not going to be the guy that's going to give us a ton of volume in the passing game, Barkley had 43 targets last year, and overall, 33 receptions, 278 I think Will Shipley can be a guy that, you know, if Barkley goes down, like can give you some weekly flex value. I don't think he's going to be an RB1, RB2 for you. But then again, guys, I mean, this is also the Philadelphia Eagles offensive line. Landon Dickerson did not suffer as bad of an injury as we initially thought, which is very, very good to see. And we're talking about receiving. Maybe Will Shipley could also run through between the tackles too. You know, that's something, you know, that we have to see. He's still a young guy out there, but overall, I think we're pretty much all in alignment on, you know, we think Will Shipley would be the guy to own here. You know, if we were looking at this room. I want to talk a little bit about the Raiders now. Let's go over the Raiders really quick and their snap share. Dante Thornton plays with the starters, 13 snaps, runs 8 total routes, 2 targets. Geno Smith and him almost connected for like a 30-yard touchdown. I think Thornton didn't stack over the DB quick enough and didn't really give Geno the best window. He also kept looking back and kind of geared down a little bit. So I think it wasn't a bad throw by Geno, but I mean, it seems like they have a connection, guys. And Dante Thornton's out there over Besh. Notable enough too. Michael Mayer, 10 snaps, 4 routes run. Brock Bowers, 7 snaps, 4 routes run. I know there's some conversations out there about, you know, is that concerning or not? I think we all pretty much agreed here. I don't think it's super concerning. But what I would say, guys, is the Brock Bowers pick. Let's talk about Bowers here for a second. Brock Bowers is the tight end 1 at the moment. He's going off the board, you know, early second round. And I have been very, very adamant that I just don't want to touch Bowers at that cost. It's not even as much as Bowers as it is just this year. I'm hitting running back at least 3 times in the first 5 rounds. And I want to try to at least get 1 or 2 wide receivers in the first 5 as well. I don't like starting off with a tight end because I just feel like you get behind on other positions pretty early. Bowers goes off the board at 18 right now. 18, tight end 1. So you're talking about the 206, somewhere around there. And Trey McBride would be the tight end 2 who goes in the second round, somewhere close to the middle of the second round to early. I think there's a world where, guys, Brock Bowers is not the one-man show here and production drops maybe a little bit. And that's not to say he's not going to be the tight end 1. He absolutely could be. But for me, guys, I'm just not touching that price tag there, you know, at the overall 18th player, when I think Trey McBride and George Kittle could very well easily be within a half point on a per game basis compared to McBride. And you're getting a 1-round discount on McBride and you're getting a 2-round discount on Kittle. Matt, I'll go to you first. What are your thoughts on Bowers? Is he a guy that you would like to touch at that price tag? Is the usage concerning at all? And do you expect us to see maybe even another step forward in usage from last year?
Sure. So let's start. First of all, Bowers, fantastic player. There are 0 concerns about what he can be for this team. We already saw the tight end finish last year. Tight end 1, 153 targets, 112 receptions, almost 1,200 yards, and 5 touchdowns. Do I think he can repeat that? He absolutely can. I would be a little bit concerned with some slight regression just because it's going to be tough to replicate. I mean, again, he had a tight end 1 season. Long term, no concerns. I mean, he's the tight end 1 in Dynasty for me, and I don't see that changing. It's pretty clear cut. The big question of, is there any reason to be concerned about what Michael Mayer could be? Does he shark some opportunities? No, not at all. I mean, what we know is a lot of teams, they're going to have 2 tight end sets. Michael Mayer is going to have his opportunity to be on the field. But we saw that last year. I mean, Mayer is what he is. He's a great player. There's a lot of speculation that he could be traded to some other team. He could be moved. I don't think that's going to be happening because Coach and I have talked about this a lot of these teams want 2 tight ends that they can throw out there. And having Bowers and Michael Mayer on the field at the same time is a positive thing for the Raiders team. They need that. It's worth noting the snap share for Brock Bowers. I mean, only 7 snaps with the first team. Ran a route on 4 of those. Got 1 target. He had that cool catch. That's awesome. We like to see that. But I don't think we should overreact to Michael Mayer having 10 snaps with the starters, running 4 routes just like Bowers, having a target. I mean, that's fine, well and good. But, you know, I am with you, Pete. The cost and redraft, too much for me. I'm not doing that. At the 206, you're basically absolutely locking in that Bowers is going to have an exact same season or if not better than he had last year. And I don't think I want to make that bet. I mean, the names around him, you can get equal point opportunity with better upside, in my opinion. I would rather kick the can down a little bit, go get George Kittle, who's going, 2 rounds later? I think there's a ton of opportunity there. A lot of the names like Bucky Irving, Drake London, Brian Thomas, those are names that you're looking at and passing on just to draft Brock Bowers. If it's not a tight end premium league, I'm not doing it.
Yeah, Coach, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, and I agree with everything Matt said. The only couple things I want to add is we talk about this a lot with Josh Allen in Buffalo and how Josh Allen, for whatever reason, just does not love to target the tight ends. Geno's never really loved that either necessarily. So that's one concern I would have for Brock Bowers. I do, in my opinion, I think Bowers is the best tight end in the league personally. But Chip Kelly also likes to be a little more wide open than everybody else. And if that's the case, you don't see as much 12 personnel, then there could be, if there's any type of rotation, then he's going to experience some regression. There's no doubt about that. So I do think while I'm really high on Bowers, and I think he's their best player, and he's got to get out there. He's going to take a small step back, in my opinion. It's not going to be drastic, but there will be a little step back.
Yeah, and I do want to also note when you look at last year on a points per game basis here, and I have it shared on the screen, George Kittle was number 1 on a points per game basis. Trey McBride was number 2, and Brock Bowers was number 3. Availability is the best ability. We totally get that. Trey McBride's been rather healthy. George Kittle's been banged up a little bit in his career, but you see the difference. I mean, we're talking about minimal numbers when these guys are on the field. The difference is Trey McBride has continuity with Kyler, right? And it's the same offense. George Kittle, we know George Kittle knows this offense like the back of his hand. I don't expect much regression, if any at all. I could see maybe regression from McBride, but let's keep in mind, McBride did that with 2 total touchdowns last year, guys. 2 total touchdowns. I mean, I don't expect that to stay the same. I'm not saying McBride's going to give us like 8 touchdowns, but I think somewhere closer to 5 is probably fair. And when you look at Brock Bowers and you look at Trey McBride last year, 147 targets, 111 receptions, over 1,000 yards, and then the 2 total touchdowns, right? 147 targets for McBride. I'm going to share now Bowers. Bowers has 153. So Bowers had a total of, about 5 more targets, 6 more targets. He caught 1 more pass, and McBride still beat him out on a points per game basis, even though Bowers had more catches. Well, 1 more catch. And on top of it, McBride played 1 less game. So we're also, McBride played 1 less game. He still had more points per game. And overall, I just think we're going to likely see regression. McBride has more there. James Conner's a guy that can catch the football. Marvin Harrison Jr. can catch the football, of course, right? I think the biggest concern for me is I think we're going to get more of a balanced attack here. Right. I think that's really what it comes down to. I think we're going to get a more balanced attack. I think Bowers is going to be really, really good this year. I think he very well could be tight end 1. That's not a hot take either, of course. But I just think for what you're getting, the bust potential for the cost that you're paying for is much higher than if you're paying for McBride or Kittle. And I'd rather solidify an elite player at wide receiver or running back in the 2nd round. And if I'm going to take a shot on a tight end, go for Kittle then. Kittle's probably the guy I'd prefer even over McBride, just where Kittle's going, which is somewhere on that 3-4 turn. So I don't know if there's anything else that you guys want to add here before we move on. Matt, did you have anything else?
Yeah, real quick. I think it's worth noting the Raiders team is, out of the 3 teams we're talking about here between Kittle, Bowers, and McBride, the Raiders are the only team that added to their offense. Both of these other teams are basically re-rolling what they had last year.
But now 49ers are all healthy now, though. There's that.
Are they?
Or well, maybe
not,
maybe. Well,
I mean,
if McCaffrey comes back and plays,
sure. McCaffrey matters.
You're right.
The wide receiver room is in shambles, so it lines up to be, well, sure. Kittle was the only guy that had 1,000 yards, and he had 1,100, I think, something like that.
Well,
but the Raiders.
Your point is valid, though. Like all 3 of those teams had nothing around these tight ends last year, really.
Exactly.
Right? Nothing. And the Raiders are better with Genty, without a doubt. Does Pearsall take some pressure off Kittle? Is McCaffrey going to play? If so, he's going to catch the ball in the backfield a ton if he plays, and however long he plays. And then McBride is the only guy sitting there going, well, my team's pretty much the same.
Yeah.
And I don't know if we want to talk about Genty. We can roll into that if you want to, Pete.
Yeah, why don't we close the loop here on the McBride Bowers Kittle conversation? Let's roll into Genty. Before you start, Matt, I'll just share Genty obviously had a pretty tough week 1 in the preseason, bounces back this week. He's out there for 14 snaps, ran 6 routes, had one total target and carried the ball 7 times, including a touchdown. Did have to come out of the game, got thumped up pretty well, but he delivered a little bit of that thump too. But not concerning because, he came right back. I think it was just more precaution. He took a lick, that's for sure. Matt, talk to me about Genty, and then we'll get into like a little bit about the players, his ADP, and all that good stuff as well.
Yeah, I mean, it was nice to see him. You mentioned he had that one where he just rocked that DB stepping up to make the tackle downfield. He did get banged up a little bit, but he came back. He's fine. I think it was precaution. The one big thing for me is we saw 14 total snaps for Genty. 6 of them he had he had 7 carries. So half of his opportunities or snaps were carries. And then he had 6 routes run. There was only one play where he was in the backfield blocking. So that's what you like to see. That means lining up for plenty of opportunities for Genty to produce in this offense because I think they're there. I mean, what we know about this running back room was frankly terrible. I mean, I remember Coach and I talking about Sincere McCormick. What can he be? Is he anything worth noting? Is he even there? They don't even talk about him. Nothing comes out.
I don't know. We need Chris on the show for that.
You're not wrong. We need to get Chris in here to talk about Sincere McCormick. But I think the Genty show, you kind of got a glimpse of what it can be. He made some plays. We like what
Sincere
it is.
McCormick got 1 carry last night. He got 1 carry.
Exactly.
2 yards.
I tried to trade him. I should have done it when I had the chance, man.
Yeah. I mean, he was a dynasty darling for like 5 minutes. But
Mostert's clear handcuff here right now.
Yep. Totally agree.
Yeah.
I'm with you, Matt. Genty looked phenomenal. I thought he looked really dang good.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was cool to see how excited Gino was when Genty got in the end zone. Like, I thought that said a lot for what everybody thinks about Genty. Like, this guy's going to be really good. I hate to talk about him and lay all this praise on him without Chris here, but he's going to be pretty dang good. I do think Mostert is a real quality backup, vet backup that can play football. When he's healthy, he can really play. I just hope that for their sake, they don't have to watch Zamir White play anymore.
Yeah, well, that's a good point. I do want to note Genty right now is going off the board at 12. He's the RB6. I had Genty as my RB7, but we did get some kind of important news yesterday. Devon A-Chain looks like he's going to miss a few weeks due to some sort of I don't know if it's a lower body injury. It sounds like I didn't love hearing that. I think based off of yesterday and just the injury to A-Chain, I had A-Chain 1 spot ahead of Genty as my RB6 and Genty my RB7. I think I'm sharing now that I'm probably going to flip that just because of the concern with A-Chain. I do think it also open up a nice buy window if people are afraid of A-Chain too because of that injury. So we could get a little bit of a discount, which would be really nice. But I think overall the usage for Genty was extremely, extremely nice to see. I want to ask you guys here, Matt, Ashton Genty going off the board at 12, RB6. Where do you have him in your running back rankings this year? And do you think he could finish as the RB1? I kind of know Coach's thoughts. I want to give him a chance at the end, after you, because I think he probably might feel a little bit different than both of us. But what are your thoughts here, Matt?
Yeah, I think my take might be a little poisoned because I've listened to Coach talk about this too much. But I think it's merited. I really do. When we step back and we look at the cost of Genty, he's going off the board. You said RB6, right?
Yeah.
I mean, can he finish as the RB1? Absolutely he can. I mean, we saw what he did last year. Fantastic player, fantastic season at Boise State. Does that happen? I would be shocked. I mean, there's still some holes that this Raider team needs to fix. But my biggest concern is the cost you're drafting him at. You're just having to lock in that he's going to be around the top 5. And I don't think that that's necessarily in the cards this year. Long term, absolutely. I mean, Coach, you've mentioned it. I'm sure you've got it in your back pocket, so I'll let you throw it out there. Between Jahmyr Gibbs, what we saw in year 1 from him, what we saw in year 1 from Bijan, they didn't have these top 5 seasons. It kind of takes them a little bit to work into that role. I think it's more likely that Genty finishes around 10 to 12, and maybe even falls outside of the top 12. And we'll have to see, but I do think that he's drafted a little bit too high for me. So I would pass, and I'd be taking some other names behind him, including that of like Bucky Irving. I'd rather have Bucky, who looked good yesterday, and continuing to, again, progress his game. I mean, I don't know if you saw the catch he made in the end zone. Fantastic. Not to mention Rashad White's hurt. Coach, you're laughing at me, but it's true. It's true.
I
Coach,
mean, you had to work Bucky in. You just had to work Bucky in, right?
I have to. It's contractual obligation.
Matt literally took every point that I had. I mean, Genty, to me, 6 is a little high. Is Genty going to be a really phenomenal football player? Yeah, I do think so. But I think 10 to 12 is probably more likely. It is worth noting, though, that even though Mostert, I think he got 1 carry with the ones last night. Like, he was not being worked in as much. That was the thing that hurt Gibbs and Bijan, is they were pretty much splitting carries. Bijan significantly, especially in year 1. So I do think it could help Genty that if they don't work Mostert in, but it also could be that Mostert's such a vet, he don't need but a carry or 2, and that's all he really needs to get going. Just try to keep him healthy, and then when game time comes, week 1 comes, he'll play a little bit more. So I do think 10 to 12 is probably more likely. I wouldn't be shocked. Anywhere from 1 to 15 wouldn't shock me, if we're being honest. I just think 6 is a little high.
Yeah, absolutely. I do want to say this before we continue here. We'll close the loop here on the Ashton Genty thing. But appreciate you guys tuning in here in the morning. We have 17 people here on YouTube. We got a bunch more on Twitter as well. So appreciate you guys jumping in with us this morning. If you haven't already, go ahead and like the show. Give us a subscribe. We would really, really appreciate it. We also did drop a Discord. If you guys are on Discord, if it's something that you like to do, we have a free version of Discord. You can go in there, chat with us. We talk during the games. We're going to have a lot of fun this football season. We also do provide some paid versions in there as well if you want to get more access to us. Some of our rankings, one-on-one conversations when we're not live because we can't always be here for you guys. So a lot of really cool stuff dropping for us. We're really excited. And we appreciate the support that we've gotten from you guys. I would say we're probably got about 20 more minutes left here. If you guys have any questions, I know I have my first draft tonight. I don't know about you guys, but I do have my first draft tonight. If anybody in here, in the comments, in the chat right now does have a draft happening today or this week, and you have any questions, feel free to shoot them over to us. If it's a keeper, we get a ton of keeper questions. I always like the keeper ones, but feel free to drop us some questions while we're in here still. I believe we'll go live this week a couple times as well. And then CT said, whereabouts could I find the link for the Discord? I will make sure to shoot that in there so you have it, and you can get in there. We would appreciate anybody that wants to hop in. Like I said, it's a good time. We talk a lot of football. There's a lot of cool stuff. We even have like a little film room thing. We're in season. We're going to drop some clips of some of our favorite things, maybe put a little bit of a blurb and a breakdown there to kind of, coach and teach. Coach is a high school football coach, and so he's got some knowledge. Matt also had some time playing as well, and so did I. So we're excited to help. And if anybody wants to learn anything, that's what we're here for, not just fantasy. But let's kick over to the next conversation, guys. Before I continue, is there anybody, Coach Matt, in particular that stood out to you yesterday that we haven't specifically talked about, or just this week in general, even tonight? I know the Bears are going on. Tyler Shuck is playing today. There's still football to be played. Is there anything in particular that you guys wanted to cover? I know we didn't plan for this, but is there anybody that you guys wanted to talk about that's maybe playing tonight, or anybody specific that played that impressed you so far this week?
Coach, you can go first if you want.
Man, as long as Matt got to talk about Bucky, he's probably good, I bet. As long as he got that one little Bucky plug in there. No, I mean, I really was wanting to talk about Jackson Dart. Man, he was so dang good. We already talked about him. A lot of these other guys didn't. Let's talk about the Colts quarterback situation. Let's talk about that.
Yes. That is a good one. Let's talk about it.
So
give us your thoughts. Give us your thoughts.
2 not so great options, if we're just going to be honest there. AR, A-Rich is not very good, in my opinion, just to be honest. He has some throws. You're like, oh, man. Like, he can't even set his feet to throw the out. Some things of that nature. He did look a little better. He did. I mean, I'm going to give him a little bit of credit. I thought he looked a little improved. But it wasn't what, I mean, our group chat's blowing up like A-Rich is lighting up the world, and that's not what was happening. And it was made out like I thought, oh God, Daniel Jones looks terrible. Then I go back and watch it, and he was fine. He was okay. I think it's going to come down to whether the Colts want to go with what could be versus something they feel more comfortable with. That's going to be a tough call for them. But yeah, what do you think, Matt?
I think Daniel Jones is the best quarterback. And no, that doesn't say a lot, but it is worth noting. I mean, Richardson is the tale of two things. He makes these incredible athletic plays. We saw the one deep ball where he steps up in the pocket, moves around a little bit, chucks it up there. Wide receiver makes a fantastic catch. Great play. But the problem is half the time Richardson's throwing the ball, it's awful. It doesn't go anywhere where it's supposed to be. And it's just the history of, how he's played. And, we step back, we look at his career, 50% completion rate. That is not good at all. So I'm pretty sure. I don't know a lot, but I'm sure about that. And so I just think that the Richardson saga, it's going to continue. He's got to continue to develop. Can he do it? Sure he can. And, I'm not rooting for his downfall, but at the same time, we have to be honest about what this Colts team is trying to do. They're not a terrible team. They're in a winnable division. So these games matter. And I don't know how much you can put on Anthony Richardson to really go out there and say, all right, we need you to throw the ball. I don't know if you guys remember. I can't remember who they played, but last year they had a 2-minute drill where they ran the ball the entire time because they couldn't throw it. Yeah. So I think there's a lot to really question about what's going to happen there. So, maybe this team ends up picking early and they get a new quarterback. I don't know, but I'm rolling with Daniel Jones. He's looked the best. Go ahead, Coach.
They talked about Daboll and job security. Well, Shane Steichen, no one needs to win more than Shane Steichen right here because reality is the Colts have a pretty good football team.
Yeah.
And they're kind of wasting it away with the quarterback position. So I could see them playing a safer pick like Daniel Jones and trying to win initially. And then if they struggle or, something goes south, then they throw A-Rich in there and see what happens.
Well, we've joked about it, but Kirk Cousins, man, I'm just saying it'd be interesting, right?
I saw something about this week, like the Jets were kicking the tires on Kirk Cousins this past week.
Well, we talked about Cousins the other day. It is notable that he's fully healthy and he's not playing the preseason this week. Neither is Penix. So that's interesting. I don't think they need to I don't think they need Cousins to go out there and play in preseason for a team to be like, yeah, I want him. Like, no. I think a team would be willing to take a chance on him if he's healthy. But I'll close the loop on Richardson here because we have some other comments in the chat that I want to get to. Richardson, for me, guys, look, I've been just like you guys, super, super critical of him. I think watching him play yesterday, he did look more decisive. That one dot that he had down the sideline to Gold after escaping a sack, I would say the wheel route looked like it was open for probably about a 70-yard touchdown, but I don't know. After escaping the sacks, it's hard to put it on him to not see the wheel route after he kind of reset after escaping a sack. I don't know. You could talk to a coach. I mean, I just think it's hard to ask him to find the wheel route there when, he's kind of in escape mode there and then resetting. So I think it's kind of hard to put that on him for not hitting that, but maybe he could have hit it earlier. I'd have to look at the play and see if maybe he could have threw it before the pressure came. But I just think overall, look, I've been overcritical of Richardson. I think he looked way more like in rhythm. I think he got the ball out quicker. He looked sharper. I'm not super excited and saying that I'm going to go start sending trades out there to go acquire him. But I do think that, look, I think you mentioned that Shane Steichen is coaching for his job and Daniel Jones is there, but I don't know. I haven't seen a lot from Jones either when I watch, and I'm sitting here saying, yeah, he's clearly the better guy. I just think we're just assuming Richardson's just terrible because we have so many memories of him being bad. And I don't know if we barely got to see him last week. We've heard good reports out of camp. And so this was really the first time we got to see him, play. Now, granted, it was against the twos and not the ones, which would have been nice to see. But I think overall he looked better. It's probably the best version of him I've seen, in my opinion. But again, it's such limited time. And when the hits start to come and the pressure starts to come, do those new things that he's picked up and learned? Does he fall back on bad habits? I have no idea. But that was just my takeaways and thoughts. Is there anything else that you guys wanted to add to that, or should we move on?
I've talked enough about the Colts quarterback room. It's making me sick.
All right.
Yeah,
let's move on. I did want to say CT said Coleman Owen is a guy to keep an eye on. He's a Colts wide receiver. I'm not super familiar with him, to be completely honest. 24 years old, 5'10", 181.
Former Ohio Bobcat.
There you go. So I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on him, but I can't really speak too much on him because he's not. But I'll gladly take an eye and check him out if he's somebody to watch for sure.
I'll give you the 30-second breakdown.
Sure.
It's an uphill battle. I mean, this Colts this Colts wide receiver room, not that it's deep, but it's just crowded. I mean, we've got Downs, Pittman,
A.D. Mitchell.
A.D. Mitchell, thank you. I was trying to think of his name. Gold.
Pierce.
So, I mean, Alec Pierce is another name of he's a solid player. He's not anything great or special, but he's good at what he does. So it's crowded. His opportunity to get on the field is going to be difficult. But, moving forward, you never know. So a dynasty sleeper, dart throw, if you got conviction, who am I to say? So I love it. Put him on the roster, throw him on the taxi.
Stash him on the taxi. He got coached up by Tim Albin, who's now and won a MAC title, back-to-back MAC titles. Right, and now is the head coach of my alma mater, Charlotte. Let's go Niners! Let's get that plug in there.
This is why I keep you guys around, because you guys teach me something, I think, every show. So, Gringo said my sleeper pick this season is Kyle Monangai. Well, this is interesting because Coach is the Bears fan, and last night Matt and Coach own a team in Dynasty, and we're trying to get Monangai thrown in on a deal last night. Because they know that I happen to like Troy Franklin, but I think they overestimated a little bit how much I am a fan of Troy Franklin. But overall, yeah, I think Coach, you would know more about the situation, but it sounds like Roschon has a possibility to maybe not make the roster. I don't know how true that is because that room's kind of thin already, but do you think Monangai has taken over that RB2 role, or do you think he will be the RB2 starting week 1?
Like the Bears beat writers are all talking like Roschon Johnson's going to get cut. I don't see how. Like, keep Travis Homer over Roschon Johnson. That would really surprise me. But I do think Monangai is going to end up as the RB2 here in Chicago by week 1. I personally thought Roschon Johnson showed some glimpses last year of being a pretty decent player. I know I did. Me and Matt sat through and watched all of his carries from last year, and we're like, this guy can play a little bit. Our offensive line was so terrible, it's hard to judge. So there is that. Monangai has looked good. He's had some bursts in the preseason. We'll see a little bit more tonight. The Bears will play their ones tonight in the preseason, so you're going to get a better feel about who the RB2 actually is tonight, I believe.
Yeah. Let's move on because we've talked Monangai, and if you do have any questions, Gringo, we actually did drop a recent video where we talk about this whole Bears room me and Coach did last week. So if you want to take a look at that, it's in the archives as well. I do want to talk about Emeka Egbuka, but before we do that, since we have 15 people here in the chat, we are going to do a giveaway probably next week. We're going to do a Dynasty team review to one of our paid members. So if you're not familiar, we do a team review. It's $25 for Dynasty teams, and we do a pretty thorough breakdown. We have the content and information in our Discord if you want to take a look at exactly what we do for teams. But we're going to do a team review. We're probably going to record it as well to go over the team review once it's complete. to show you guys, kind of what we can offer and what we can provide. So we're going to do a free giveaway to one of our paid members in the Discord. So stay tuned and look out for that. We appreciate the support, and we'll probably do another giveaway as well sometime soon to give away like maybe a month's worth of our premium side on the Discord as well. And treat you guys because we appreciate the support. If you haven't already, make sure to give us a thumbs up, like the show, subscribe already. If you don't want to pay for Discord, we understand times are tough for some people. And if you don't have that, totally cool. But hop in the Discord for free at least and chat with us because, we're in there talking football all the time. I do want to touch on Russell, Dean Stewart's question. Appreciate you, man. He said, did I miss the Igbuka chat? And we haven't actually gotten to Igbuka. I think it's important to talk about him. And I don't know. I don't know how much more I can talk about Ike Egbuka because I feel like I've been super high on him. Coach Matt, you guys know that. There's nothing new that I can really share in terms of he looked good yesterday. This is what we've expected from Egbuka. I think all three of us expected him to be NFL ready, right? That was his nod, and that was one of the appealing things about him in Dynasty is I don't think we had to worry about him being a project or how long it would take for him to translate. He was crisp in college, really smooth route runner, just really good transition once he catches the football and gets upfield, doesn't really gear down at all. And he just looked like an NFL ready player. And so catches the touchdown yesterday and made a big play the week before that. I think we've seen pretty much what we need to see from Egbuka. He looks like he's ready to go. I don't think Chris Godwin is going to be ready. If I had a $1,000 free bet right now and I could bet on -110 for Chris Godwin to, be out there week one, I would put $1,000 on him not to be out there. I do not see Chris Godwin being out there. The red flags are all over the place. He hasn't practiced. He had to get a cleanup, which we found out recently. And it's just bad vibes. But Ike Egbuka, I think, is going to be phenomenal, at least for the 4 weeks of the season. And I think he could also carve out a pretty good role and be somebody that you feel comfortable with, at least as your flex play, even when Chris Godwin comes back.
Yeah, it's an embarrassment of riches in Tampa at wide receiver, right? I mean, Chris Godwin's going to be out, and I'm not real sure they're even going to miss him. Like Baker Mayfield's been singing Egbuka's praises. He looks phenomenal. Like he looks ready to go. They got vets like Sterling Shepard that can step in and play and help you. Like I'm not saying he's phenomenal, but Jalen McMillan, also another really good player that would start for numerous teams in the NFL, and they've got a whole lot of options there, not to mention, of course, Mike Evans. So that room is just loaded, and Egbuka is going to jump right in and have an impact. So that should tell you how good he actually is.
Is there anything worth noting? And Coach, I'll throw it back to you. Pete, you can jump in. Sure. Is it worth noting that Egbuka was lining up and playing the X role as opposed to that slot role that a lot of us thought he would just slide right into? Because we mentioned, he was the safest prospect to probably all of us here at Face Off. We knew what he was. He had a great career at Ohio State, and we just felt like he could slide right into that role. I mean, Chris Godwin's hurt, kind of made a little bit of sense. But Coach, do you put anything towards him lining up out at X?
Other than he's just better than they were prepared for. I think there's a little bit of that, or we even thought, like when you take that guy and you stick him out to X, it's like this guy could be our primary dude from the jump. So there is that. That's something worth keeping an eye on for sure.
Yeah.
I
think it's reassuring. Yeah, I'm just going to close up real quick because I think it's reassuring to see Egbuka make that transition. Because like Coach said, you put him out on X, it's a little bit of an island. It's time where you got to get out there, you got to create. It's on you. So it's reassuring to see. Coach, you mentioned Baker Mayfield. The resurgence of his career is absolutely incredible. I mean, you can't say enough positive things about what he's done to turn that ship around. Spoil of riches is a great way to put it too. I mean, Evans is going to be there. Godwin, when he gets back, McMillan has looked great. Another Bucky Irving plug. K. Dotton's good. I mean, this team has talent on offense to score a ton of fantasy points.
Yeah. I want to get through a couple of quick hitters here. We have about 5 minutes left. Give quick thoughts. I'll pass it over to you, Coach. I'll pass it over to Matt. Just only one person per topic here. KLS, right? KLS ends up starting with the ones over Trey Harris. Trey Harris had a nice touchdown catch yesterday. But it's a crowded wide receiver room. Keenan Allen's now there. Matt, what are your thoughts on KLS? I mean, he's now running with the ones over Trey Harris. And now Trey Harris looks like, he might be relegated to being the wide receiver 5. Quinn Johnson now goes down. So we'll see what happens. Hopefully he's okay. He took a tough shot. But what are your thoughts on, KLS starting with the ones and being out there? And Trey Harris was the only one out of those 5 guys that did not get any burn with Justin Herbert.
Yeah, so I'm a big Harris truther. I was in the offseason. I think it's going to continue to grow. I'm not too concerned at this point. You mentioned he had the touchdown. It was great to see him make that play down the sideline because he really hadn't done anything. But if we go look at the camp videos, he's played fantastic, and he's with Herbert all the time.
Sure.
KLS, Keandre Lambert-Smith on the opposite side, I don't think we can call it a fluke because it's looked really dang good in training camp. It's looked really good in the games. Keenan Allen, he's like coach's age. He's like 432. I don't know. We'll figure out. So I like both of these young guys to continue to grow with Ladd McConkey. I'm not worried about Trey Harris, but I am interested in getting KLS on any team I can get him on.
Okay. Coach, I'm going to kick this next one over to you. Kyron Williams did not play yesterday. Rams generally don't play their starters in preseason. We know that by now. But Blake Corum and Jarquez Hunter both got some burn. Generally, like we talked about, they do rest their starters, but especially ones that are expected to have a pretty big role. But the Rams running back situation's been kind of up and down. Kyron obviously had a really good year last year. He's had a good year the year before. I know you're a fan of Kyron Williams, right? He signs that extension. With Corum and Hunter playing this week, Corum played 9 snaps on the first drive before allowing Hunter to take over. In the past, I'm reading here, it says that the Rams have sat more of their players as the preseason progressed. And right now, I mean, it looks like Corum could be the starter, but either way, none of the starter if Kyron goes down, but he's definitely, more the number 2. But if you had to own one of these guys in redraft this year, forgetting about dynasty, but redraft, if you were going to stash one of these guys on your bench, would it be Blake Corum? Would it be Hunter? Does the usage yesterday and so far in the preseason, does that factor into it at all? Or are you just plainly going one guy because you think they're better?
Yeah, well, I don't think one guy's better over the other really, but I do think Corum, especially last week, showed to me that he's the clear handcuff. He's RB2 for them. Jarquez Hunter played well yesterday, but it's worth noting that he played a whole lot after Blake Corum came out, and Jarquez Hunter then played a lot more extended period of time, got a lot more carries. I think some of that's because they know Blake Corum's ready to go and prepared to to step in if need be. Like we said, he looked really good in week 1. I think Kyron Williams was really good. I've always been a fan. Matt's a hater. But I think Corum now is ready to be his RB2 and replacement.
Awesome. Matt, I'm going to kick this one over to you, man. Jets offense, kind of up and down in terms of what people think is going to happen here. But running back situation here, Breece Hall, 11 snaps with the starters, runs 3 routes, gets 1 target, 7 total carries. Braylon Allen, 8 snaps, 1 route run, no targets, 5 carries. And I don't know, Breece Hall, pretty much, people are kind of a little bit down on him right now. What are your thoughts? I know you're a Breece Hall guy. Is that fair to say? Do you have concerns about Braylon Allen eating into that? And let me ask you this too. Do you think Breece Hall stays as high in your dynasty rankings next year where he is now?
Yeah, I think for me, Breece Hall, I had a video about a week or so ago where I was saying he's one of my biggest buys, especially a rebuild target. It's a contract year for him. Yes, Braylon Allen has his plays. He's made some good plays in camp. I'm not concerned about him. I think Breece Hall is the clear best running back in this room. I also think that he's going to excel at what the Jets need. And what we know about Justin Fields is he checks the ball down a ton. Breece Hall is fantastic out of the backfield. I mean, he had 2 seasons back-to-back with like 74 and 90-something targets. So I'd love to see that going forward. This Jets team, I don't think they're that good. So I expect them to be down, losing quite often. And Breece Hall is going to be the benefactor of that. And whether it's with this Jets team or he re-signs, because he's acknowledged he is not someone that was drafted by this regime. He's an old plant, so he's got to figure out if he can either stay or if he's going to move on. And if he moves on, he's going to be an RB1 somewhere. I don't see that changing. So I love Breece Hall. I'm buying him in Dynasty. I expect him to be continuing to be high in my Dynasty rankings. So go buy him if you can. It's a smash pick for me.
Yeah. Yeah. And honestly, he could land somewhere else, to be completely honest with you.
Russell fine.
Russell said, post your draft results tonight if you can. Yeah, I'll definitely throw them up. It's a 14-man league, tight end premium. It's with a couple of some content creators and some just regular fantasy players. But I'll definitely share that as well. Interested. I draft in a couple of 14-man leagues, but it's usually auction. This is Serpentine, and it's not a premium in all those leagues. It's a premium in this one. So we'll see. Last question here, Coach, for you. Your man, Justin Fields, looked a little rough yesterday. Camp reports, we've seen the video of him, just not really looking great throwing the football. I don't need to go in and get your deep dive analysis on on Justin Fields and, if you think he's going to be a good quarterback. But let's talk about Garrett Wilson, right? Pretty much a one-man band at the wide receiver position over there. And Garrett Wilson right now is going as the wide receiver 15, actually. He's slipped as of late in ADP. He's behind JSN. He's behind Tyreek Hill. He's behind T. Higgins, behind Lad McConkey. Do you have it that way as well? Would you take Garrett Wilson over any of those guys? I know you're not a big Justin Fields guy, but I know you're a big Garrett Wilson guy. Do you like him over any of those guys?
To me, I think Garrett Wilson's more of he's 11, 12, somewhere in there. If he had a better quarterback play, you're right. I don't like Justin Fields. I don't think he's a very good player. I'm a bit of a scorned Bears fan, so there is that. His training camp highlights and stuff have looked really bad. He looked really bad yesterday, but I do think they're going to target one guy repeatedly again. That's not changed in New York. There's still weapons there outside of Garrett Wilson. So it's going to be similar to DJ Moore with Justin Fields, where somebody's got to get the ball thrown to him in a room that's really bad, and Garrett Wilson's far and away the best player there. And I think Garrett Wilson's a really good player, period, personally. So I think he's still going to get bombarded with targets, whether it's screens or whatever they can get to him. And I think he's still going to have a significant impact. I think he'll finish similar to where he did last year.
Yeah, I think that's fair. But look, that's going to do it for us, guys. Thank you so much for watching. We have a ton more content coming up the next few days. There's a couple things scheduled to drop. We did just drop a Breece Hall, James Cook video. We dropped a Puka versus Devontae Adams video. We dropped a couple of other things from Coach and Matt as well the last few days. More content coming to you. Appreciate you guys so much. If you guys have any questions, make sure to hop in that Discord because we're answering people as they're drafting. We're trying to provide as much help and insight as possible. We appreciate you guys jumping in and supporting us as always. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and we'll see you guys next time. Fuck, I fucked up. Shit.